adjustments here to this microphone. Hey, everybody. Hopefully you're doing well. Thanks so much for stopping by. I am John O'Canoe. I'm just going to turn up the volume a little bit on my microphone. Okay. All right. Let's see how that sounds. I'm going to pull down the tunes. It looks really low. Oh, you know why? Nope, that's not it. It's gonna be this one, I believe. Check. Nope. Which one is it? Mix minus browser? Nope. One moment, please. Hopefully you're doing well. Thanks. It's been a long. Oh, it's Mixbus 2. Oh, so it is this one. Well, that doesn't seem to be doing too much from what I can tell from the metering. So let's just turn it up full and see how that sounds. Now, I should have already had this ready to go, but let me listen to it now that I know what my settings are on the preamp, so I should have just done that initially, but whatevs. Oh, look, I'm live. Hey-o. Okay, that sounds okay. Actually sounds a little harsh, so I'm going to just pull back slightly. You guys tell me how it sounds. I am watching, am I watching socials? There it is. Hey, what's going on? So I am, I can hear you now. So what is going on, Angus? Good morning. And Randy, you guys, so for the timeline, 9:48:32. Angus said good morning, and 9:48:33 Randy said first comment. So technically no, but you were 1 second off. So pretty much a tie. I mean, if we're going to be technical, then no, but if we're going to look in the grand scheme of things, yes, you guys are on it. And you checked in early, so I really appreciate that. Hey, I can hear you now, and Randy says, all right, sounds good on my phone. So that's where most of you are going to be. And, man, I really appreciate you guys coming along. Now, today's show is not sponsored to you by Ember Mugs. Keep your coffee hot and your creamer curdled. It is a great temperature. I needed to keep this coffee warm. I'm using milk today because I ran out of half and half. And so I'm going to do a lot of talking. And hopefully this will hold my coffee hot until the end of the show. And who knows when that will be. So, foiled again. Oh, well, it's all good. And to answer your question, yes, I'm doing well, thanks. I hope you are as well. Yes, I am. It has been a busy couple of weeks. You may have noticed, or maybe not, that I didn't do a show last week, and that's totally fine. Sometimes life happens, and just the way that it happened was I was traveling. As you can tell by the title of the YouTube show, I was traveling down to Alabama to participate in a conference that I've been a part of for a few years now. It used to be in Florida. It's called Gulf Coast Getaway, and it's basically a conference for college students from a bunch of Christian sister schools, or a lot around the South, but some people came from the North, so that's pretty cool. Like there were folks from, I believe, Wisconsin and Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, we were part of a conference, and I'm actually on stage leading this one. And so I go down with a group of my people, and I have some friends that I've been doing a lot of life with for a long time. And so I was with them, and these are those people. A good group of people. And there's so the two guys, the guy that is in green, that's Chris, and the guy that's in black next to me, that's Steve. Those two guys I've actually been singing with and doing music with for probably 15 years now. In the early 2000s, we started hanging out. And then the other folks are people that we've met along the way. Now, my wife is next to the guy in the green, Chris. She's the short one in the black shirt. Still the shortest in the group, unbelievably, but I think maybe there were some thicker heels on that day. All the girls are really short this year, but so anyways, these are folks that I do life with. The two on the end are married. Cole is in the orangish / gray or brown shirt, and his wife Kalita, who is Canadian, who I know her family and I know her aunts and uncles and everybody, and so we're connected in she's a fellow countryman of mine. But then they live in Michigan, and they've lived there for quite a long time. And then since they got married, pretty much. And then my wife, Holly, Chris, Savannah is kind of a new friend that we've had for several years now. But she I've known her for 3 years now. And she's a really strong soprano and leads worship here in Nashville. So we know her through those worlds at actually a church that I know the minister really well at. So just so happened that Chris knew her and invited her, and she's kind of been one of us ever since. And then me and Steve. So that's our group. This is kind of the venue. And now a photo on stage doesn't really mean too much. I realize that because it's like, yeah, okay, but like, how do we know that you guys actually did something? Well, they took some pictures, and this is a little blurry, but this is somebody I think it's just somebody in the audience that took a photo, and that's me on those huge screens in my plaid shirt. You can see me next to Chris on stage. There I am. And yeah, so we were singing and doing stuff, and that was a lot of fun. So we had a great, busy weekend. It started out a little shaky because some miscommunication happened between the venue and us, and that's kind of common, unfortunately. Not just with this group, but just when large logistics are involved. But there were probably, I don't know how many hundreds of students, but this is near the front of the group, and there's a lot of chairs that go behind. So it's kind of fun to do that stuff. And there we are on stage. There are some other, matter of fact, so they posted 5 photos, and it said, here's the end. See you all next year. And so the first photo is just kind of like in the crowd, and whatever. You can see us up on stage, see some of us up on stage. The next photo, was the speaker. So there's photo number 2. That's the speaker for the weekend. But then the next 3 pictures, you've seen this one. There I am. And then this one, oh, look. There I am. And then look. Well, Chris is on screen this time, but there I am. I got on screen all 3 times. So great. This is just, I think, random people taking pictures of the room. But yeah, there it is. There's evidence that I actually do things behind the board, and I do things on stage. And there we are. Good times. So, fun stuff. My coffee never lasts long enough to get cold in the mug. See, it depends on what we're doing here, because if I get talking and then I neglect the coffee and it goes cold, it's just a consequence of the live show. Sometimes, most of the time, I run out of coffee before it gets cold. Hey, relevant to this morning's discussion, I started piano lessons on Boxing Day. No way. That's cool. Let me know how that goes. I've played bass on and off for the last 25 years, and I've tried a few times to learn piano. Yeah, I started my musical career singing, but then on a piano, and then that fizzled. And then I played guitar for a while because my dad is a really good guitar player, and I was never able to really comfortably figure out how to do it to where it became felt natural. So now I picked up, because of this group actually, I picked up a bass guitar, which is a fair bit simpler in terms of my mind figuring it out, and I've played it for a couple of years, and so that's something that I kind of do for fun and have on the side here. It's actually sitting over in the corner of the bonus room. Bonus room kind of got cleaned up a little bit because of something I want to talk about soon here, and I wrote my notes on a black sticky notepad in green ink so that you couldn't see them if the camera. There's no writing, but here are my notes for the show. So we traveled down to Alabama, Orange Beach, Alabama, pretty much from the top to the bottom of the state, the great state in which houses our good friend, Tom Sinclair. And his show was yesterday, and if you caught it, you would have seen me chatting to him about that. But we traveled down through Alabama from Tennessee, from Nashville, which is weird that I'm a local here now. So that was a 6-hour trip. My wife and I were with Cole and Kalita, so the two on the left-hand side, they flew into Nashville from Detroit, and then we drove down together and practiced and listened to our music and did a bunch of things, because this group actually doesn't get together other times of the year, but each of them are so stinking talented, probably with the exception of me. Everybody's got so much talent on this stage that they can be given a song and be ready to sing. It's like an orchestra, right? They give them a song at the beginning of the week and they're ready to perform it in front of a paying live audience by the end. That's the same thing with these folks. They are so stinking good at what they do, and their brains work in such a way that they can hear a song. It doesn't really matter what song, and probably figure out their part in it. And so they're, we do a lot of just a cappella congregational singing. It's one of the things that the tribe that I belong to has, done for a long time, although that is becoming more and more of a less common thing. And then, everybody has a worship band. So, picking up instruments is actually a little bit more foreign to us than just doing a cappella singing. And so we can give a song like Egypt or Abide, or there's a whole bunch that are kind of right mainstream Christian music right now. And these people can break it all apart into their parts and then make it sound good. There's good a cappella and there's bad, cheesy a cappella. And I can point you in some directions if you really wanted to hear it. There's a group that does it well called United Voices, and they're out of Nashville, I believe. We've been listening to them for a little while. They do it pretty well. And then there's a super cheesy group called Zoe Group, which everybody, the people in the a cappella church singing world, that's the base foundation for a lot of stuff. But they sterilize a lot of the songs. There's very little flavor to them. There's very little personality. And so it's kind of hard to listen to. And I don't particularly enjoy it, although I know that a lot of people have found connection through that ministry. So I'm not gonna say it's not working. I'm just saying it's not for me, which is totally fine, because what I do is not necessarily for everybody else. So it's not their, it may not be their thing. So all good. And these are the people I was hanging out with last week, and that's why there wasn't a show, because I was on the road with these folks. So had a good trip through Alabama, did a lot of music stuff. We stayed in this beautiful, I think it was a Verbo, maybe Airbnb, but it was pretty much right on the beach. And down in Alabama on Orange Beach and in Panama City and those sort of coastal towns that are right on the Gulf of Mexico, they mostly people own them, and then they rent them out when they're not there, so they can afford to be there. So they go down there and they take the weekends that they want. But then, why did this not work? They take the weekends that they want to stay down there, but then they rent them out for the rest of the time. So we seriously got to stay in this beautiful place, and got to just hang around and work on stuff. They're all musical people, so we spent a lot of time doing music stuff. But yeah, it was so cool to kind of get to be with them and enjoy that time. So this is everybody but Holly, I think. Oh, and Savannah's not there. But beautiful, right on the coast. Now, it was very cold last weekend, so we didn't get to go really to the beach per se. We did actually go and touch sand, but it was really for just a few moments because it was pretty chilly. But we did go for the photo op, and then we got it. That's the winter jacket that Bird Dog bought me when I left. They bought me a going away present, the guys from Australia, and they bought me this is the nicest jacket I think I've ever owned. Clearly the most expensive, but this thing is rugged, great work jacket, super warm, and I took it, and it was the perfect thing to wear on a windy beach in January down on the Gulf Coast. So that was really, really cool. And we went for the photo op, and then we promptly got off of the beach because, good golly, man, it was very cold, very cold. So that was really cool. Let's just check in on the. It didn't occur to me that there were actually, that there are actually online lessons available until just recently. I am hooked. Daily lessons and practice are making a real impact. Man, I'm so happy to hear that. That's amazing. I love it when people try new things. I'm going to circle back to that because I've just said that phrase recently. And hey, a pre-recorded lesson really helps. I'm not trying to practice. I'm not trying the patience of the teacher, making things so much more comfortable for me. I agree. If you figure out a way to learn a new skill without like needing the teacher's time and attention, then that is that allows you to kind of work at your own pace. And that is quite literally how I have been learning to play bass guitar. So, Jeremy, what's going on, man? Today's the day. Ember Muggs in the house. So happy you could join us. Thanks, man. Great to see you. Happy New Year. That is always a pleasure to have you. And you are well loved here on this show. Angus says, good morning. Hey, man, what's happening? It's nice to regurgitate this conversation that's happening in the chat. It's not for me is a very important phrase to be able to say. Yes, that is the truth. Because if everybody loves it, you just need to say, I don't mind that you love it. It's just not for me, you know? And if it's not for me, then all good. No judgment. I just prefer something maybe a little bit more, what's the right term? I prefer something a little bit more, what feels more authentic to me. And that means maybe a little bit of mistakes, or maybe maybe just not like stripped out of all of your personality. Put it that way. So, because that's honestly what helps people identify and relate with the moment that they are experiencing whatever it is. So in our instance, we're doing music and we're leading this group of Christian college kids in worship, and they want to hear the song again. Like, we've had a lot of requests for people they're like, hey, we'd love to have that arrangement. But when you're at the event, you know, you want, for example, Chris is the leader of our group, and he has a different sound than like Steve does, right? Steve also leads, but he has another role in our group. And so if Steve leads or Chris leads, I want those two things to be different. I don't want it to sound the same and like we can just punch in and punch out whoever and it never changes. I want there to be some skin in the game so that when it changes, it's like, whoa, this is different now. I just got back into the busy production season. Oh, right on. What are you up to these days? I can't believe how fast this year has already started, for sure. Yes, it totally has. Ember Mugs. Yes, our non-sponsor today is Ember Mugs. Yeah, I've taken in-person music lessons several times in my life, and it's never really worked as well for me as a pre-recorded. I actually learned the very basics of bass guitar from a VHS tape produced by a session player. Oh, that's cool. Yes, there are a lot of online resources, even on YouTube, that can help you learn the basics, which is where I started. I do use something called multitracks.com, which is a worship thing for churches, and that they have the ability to basically break down a lot of popular songs in sections. And so you can play the bass part, or you can eliminate it from the mix and play along and add your own things and do whatever you want to do. So that's been really good. Really a good learning tool for me, you know. So we had a great weekend, but it did mean that we had to skip the show. If you are interested at all in hearing us actually singing, the site, it's a Facebook page of all things. The site is actually just says Gulf Coast Getaway. So if you have a Facebook account and you go over there, that's what you're looking for, GCG. And the live streams are actually on Facebook, so you could scrub ahead to when Chris starts leading and kind of get an idea. The online mix, I was actually very happy with. Like I listened to it after the fact, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good for online mix. So bravo. I don't say that very often because most of the time people don't know what they're doing. when they're sending a mix up to the cloud. And I had a good conversation with Cole, who was in one of those photos of mine. I had a great conversation with Cole because he's actually a minister he's in Flint, but their church is in Burton, Michigan, if you know where that is. So Cole, we were talking about kind of the trials of having a smaller church post-pandemic and doing mixes. And so he got telling me about his workflow and how it works out. He actually remasters the music portion and to somewhat the sermon, but he remasters the portion of the music from his live stream with Logic, which is, if you're cool with it and you're learning that skill, then have at it. I mean, wow. I did recommend, though, as ministry goes and gets busier, that he consider mixing to the ears or training a sound guy that he trusts, which I don't think that's the issue, but I think they may not have all the technical prowess just yet, and he wants it to sound a very specific way. And so he's actually running multi-tracks into a recorder and then taking those tracks post-service and mixing it and then uploading the sermon and the whole thing. So they're not live streaming, they're recording and then they're uploading it afterwards. So like that evening or something like that. That's a cool way to do it. It's a lot of extra work. I mean, if you don't have a technical team, that's a big burden to carry, but kudos to him for learning Logic and mastering each of the production suites and then, outputting a great product. Because I regularly think, when I see his stream, and that sounds really good for like a small church. It sounds really good. Well, I didn't know, but he was actually multi-tracking and then pretty much mastering each of the services. So that's kind of a cool, that's a cool behind the scenes things. So what I did recommend to him, and there are multiple ways to skin the cat, but the way I like to do it is you actually mix the group in your headphones, in your closed back headphones. And if you're wanting a recommendation on a reasonably priced, even EQ cans, I cannot speak any more highly of the Audio-Technica M50s. These are the ATH M50 series. These are older ones. This is the M50Ss that had the straight cable that was connected permanently. Since then, the M50s have changed to the M50Xs, and they give you two cables. They give you a straight cable that's about 10 feet, and then they give you a little bungee cable, which obviously is a little tidier, easier to use, but it can stretch if you need to. So this is a removable cable, left, right, just TRS, and they go. You actually turn it to the side, and it goes all the way in, and then you lock it by lining up. I don't know if you can see this, but you line up. I'm sorry, you're like super small. You line up the lines on the headphones right there. See the two little white lines? And then you're locked in there and it's not going to come out. These headphones are the same M50 drivers from ages ago. They haven't changed the drivers at all. They've only changed the style of the headphone and the features that are in there. Now there's a Bluetooth version and there's several colors that you can get. D-Brand used to make, and I don't think they do anymore, but they used to make like stickers for these, and that's where these are my originals. These are my prized headphones. They're not that expensive, but man, they sound good. And I had D-Brand. I ordered the D-Brand stickers for them. I'm trying to get behind it here, and put the blue inlay in there. So these are so unique. And then there's like a fiber, like a carbon fiber outside that if you can see that. So added a little personality to it. The D-Brand stickers require you to use like a heat gun or even just a blow dryer. I don't think that they have these decals anymore. They kind of go through like seasons, but the M50 series is so stinking popular. And you see recording artists, you see those headphones in tons of videos, tons and tons and tons. So gaming, popular, let me see here. Here, we can look together. Laptops, phones, new, gaming, Skins. Is there a place to cases, screen protectors, artifact, timeline, help? Order lookup, global status. I just want to see like whoops. I just want to see. Sorry, everybody. Give me one quick second because here it is. It's on this page. Okay, I just want to see if they still have them. I don't think they do. But if you click on skins and we scroll down, I would love to personalize my wife's. I bought her a set because she started doing some recording stuff. And if dbrand still has them, I'll order it because it wasn't even really that expensive. I think they're out of Toronto, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, here. Steel Series. So, Beats. Don't use Beats. Beats are crap. Sorry, did I say that out loud? So I don't see them. That's a bummer. I wish maybe I'll contact them and say, hey, do you have any kind of left over? Because that would be awesome. Anyways, I can't speak highly enough any more highly of the M50s because they're great headphones, nice even sound, very flat. So what the engineer, producer, director, whatever you want to call them, has put out, that's what it's supposed to sound like to them. So when I mix in-house stuff, I mix to the cans and then I output things to matrices or mix buses or something like that, and then send each of those somewhere. So my house is going to be mix bus A, which then loops into left and right and goes to the main speakers, maybe. Mix bus B is going to be the stream. Mix bus C will be a cry rooms. D will be the lobby. And you can individually mix the actual mix bus so that it sounds right. And you can accommodate whatever speakers or lack thereof are in those spaces. And so that's a really handy way because then basically what you heard in the headphones, you can pipe out directly to the stream and that will be pretty accurate, pretty close. But then you can individualize the room because obviously the room is going to have walls and reflections and all sorts of things going on, and people, bags of water, as they say, sitting in the room. So that's going to absorb sound and make it sound different. And then you can also do your cry room and your lobby and wherever else you need to send sound. You can do all of that, and maybe even like a secondary recording studio if you're recording off site or if you're recording online or whatever. You can send a separate thing for there that won't get messed up when you change it in the house. So I threw that out at Cole and said, well, here's a way to maybe simplify it. He said the only issue is we really don't have a paid technical person that we get a consistent sound out all the time, and so we have volunteers doing it, so I'd rather just master it after the fact and just take in whatever the instruments give us without any effects, without anything, without whatever's going on in the house. Just comes in direct to the multi-tracker, and then I master it later. And I was like, yeah, if that's the case, that's probably what I would do too. So that's the right thing to do. Ooh, Jeremy says, let's talk about multi-tracks. Okay, I'm all about it. Have you had any issues with their playback app? Okay, so the primary thing that I use multi-tracks for, and this is going to be kind of a let the air out of the balloon, is I don't use it for tracks. I actually use it for practice. So I use the rehearsal mix and I use set lists and libraries. That's pretty much where I hang out, and it's cost me like $6 a month or something like that. But I play almost every day, maybe every other day, pretty consistently. So that is, that's what I do all the time. Is I use multi-tracks, but I don't actually use the playback app, which means probably don't do what it is that you're asking me that I do. So have you ever played around with the Prime multi-track by Loop Community ever? No, although I have a Loop Community login or whatever, but I've never used their thing just because I found all the stuff that I needed to learn and play was in multi-tracks. So do you use multi-tracks Pro and use Dante out? No, man, I'm saying no to a lot of things here. That's cool though. I need to look into that. I haven't used multi-tracks Pro with Dante because that would be stinking cool. I really need to get into the Dante realm, but let's make a quick little detour and just talk briefly about an announcement that our friend Eamon has made. So many of you remember Eamon Drew from the Bird Dog world. He posted on Facebook the other day that he is launching a startup called Turtle AV. And it looks like this. and Dante audio bridges. Look at that. So he's got a handful of products. I believe he is working with maybe one or two of the former Bird Dog employees as well. And so he's got these boxes, but then they also have a few individual devices that look oddly like Dante, AVIO devices, but they're all branded the same here. So I might pick his brain and see if he can get me a deal, because that would be amazing. And we could review them here on the channel, and I could give you my honest feedback. So this is Turtle AV is the company, and they are launching these products. They should be launching at IBC, is from what I understand. So, oh yeah, he's got a matrix, a video wall matrix. And he also had the Chazzy 4K FAM. So he's got transmitter, low latency, Dante AVA. Okay. This is, I believe, their video arm with, look at that. Like, these are all the things that we really should have done 6 years ago. But USB-C, so Dante AVA, HDMI, and USB-C encoder. These are encoders as well, so like a wall plate. And then he's got receivers, and he's got advanced audio boxes. So anyways, there you go. Just about the headphones, I've heard great things about, or I've heard very good things about the M50 series. I really like the M50s. If you got $150 for headphones, they're the ones that I would recommend if you're just looking for responsive, flat. I'd fly on airplane with them, although they're a little clunky, and the case I had to buy for them to keep them in good shape is also very big. But the Audio-Technica series, people kind of like, they either like them a lot or they don't, and I find them to be a very good standard, a very good price. They're a little bit more expensive than that classic Sony Professional, whatever one that is. But I like the Audio-Technica driver, mostly because they're really the same across most of the fleet, with the exception of the 20. I think that one's a cheaper one, but obviously because they're $50 or something like that, like they're 1/3 the price of an M50. So I do like them. I think that they're across the fleet, it's all pretty much the same. I've done several videos on this headphone, which is the 8700X open back headphone from Audio-Technica, and just ignore the orange or the green tape here. But these open back headphones are also just over $100. Audio-Technica drivers in these things are amazing. Open back concepts. So if you're looking for open back headphones, I've done a video. Have I done a video on these? I think I have. But anyways, I had to replace the cable after many years of use, but I had a 10-foot cable on it that I kept running over with my chairs. So it pulled this out, and I thought I was up a creek, but then I learned that I could just solder a new cable on it, and these work just fine now. And so I got a little shorter cable, but it has the bungee in it, and that helps greatly when moving around the office, because it keeps it nice and short. Like, it's, I don't know, what is that, 4 feet, 5 feet maybe, but it can stretch up to 10. So without really like getting all jacked up. So those little headphones are great. Now, this is not supposed to be a headphone show, but let's talk just briefly. These are very old, and probably 10 years. And I was having issues with the Audio-Technica band basically flaking. You can see it like deteriorating there. And that is because I would wear these headphones everywhere. And on airplanes, I'd play with them on gaming. I'd wear them in warm environments. I'd wear them for recording. If people wanted to hear something I was working on, I would give them these. And so they got a lot of wear, and they started deteriorating. And so on the great interwebs, you can, on a website that rhymes with Bamazon, you can buy a cover that basically covers that up and stops the flaking issue. So the band stopped flaking. And the other thing, though, was that the actual ear cups were flaking as well. So I was kind of sad, and I was like, I'm going to have to buy another set of headphones. And then I realized, wait, they probably make, comfortable new, like, earmuffs for headphones. And sure enough, I got looking and found ones that were not pleather, the plastic leather thing. And instead, They were like a really soft material. That's a fabric, but quite a good resistant one. And so I replaced the headphones, took a chance. I replaced the actual earmuffs on them, and these ones are way nicer than the originals. And so I love using these headphones now. These are still my number one. They've always been my number one, but now they really are. I haven't had to change. This is a fixed straight cable. It's 10 feet, which I actually really liked when I bought it because I was finding that I was always like too far from my speakers. But this 10-foot cable has the little resistant on this side, not here though, but the little like spring-loaded resistor to help with the strain. And then it has a screw-on 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch adapter for one of these. It's actually a very specific one, not this one, but it's for a 1/4 inch adapter that then you can plug these into. I don't know, maybe your Behringer 1820, UMC 1820, if you want to use the headphone function. That's a 1/4 inch output. Or if you want to use the DBX 286S for your compressor and you want to hear what's going on, well, you're going to need a 1/4 inch to do that. Also, if you're going to buy a headphone amp, which I'm in the market for now, if you're buying a headphone amplifier, you may want to have 1/4 inch. So it comes with a 1/4 inch. It actually comes with a screw on 1/4 inch, so it doesn't pop out or you don't lose it. The issue is that half the time you don't need the 1/4 inch adapter. And it's also a specific 1/4 inch adapter, so it needs to have a flange on it that's a little wider. This one is a screw on, but it doesn't have the flange, and so it's too small to screw on to the jack. But first world problems, and I actually don't know where that 1/4 inch adapter is, but I have a whole bunch of them here. It works just the same if you don't have the screw-on thing, but it's a little more peace of mind if you do. So I've got 3 different 1/4 inch adapters, but they're all not the right one. So whatevs. No big deal. So I do need to buy a headphone amplifier. That's a different show. We went down a rabbit hole. You guys are talking in the chat. I have to actually go to page 2 to catch up with you guys because I've neglected you. So Angus says, hey, speaking of Dante, did you guys see that Eamon, his startup, is producing Dante hardware? Well, fancy, you should say that. Yes, super intrigued by that product set. Definitely intrigued. All right, I'm glad you guys had a conversation about this while I was ramping up to this. I didn't actually intend to talk about it, but it's pretty stinking cool. Good on you, Eamon. Well done. And I'm anxious to see what you're going to produce. Hey, what camera are you using here? I am using a Canon RP. It's with the M mount. The issue is I have this in video mode, I think, and so if you're noticing the light changing, I don't know if that's coming up here, but if the lights, it's getting a little darker, a little brighter, it's probably because I have it on video mode and something's in automatic, because I actually took this camera, again, we're going to talk about it in a second, but I took this camera with me to Alabama, and then a project came out of that, and I had to use it for that, and, yada, yada, yada. Hey, I could see adding a couple of them to my vMix rig. Yeah. I assume you're talking about Eamon's stuff. That'd be great. And if you're planning on it, let me know. I'd love to hear more. Hey, good morning, everyone. What's going on, Zach? How are you? Hopefully you're doing well. Thanks for stopping on by. Always a pleasure to see you, man. Angus, what's the name of that startup I want to see? It is called Turtle AV. Hey, Randy. Hey, Zach, says Jeremy. Hey, I use a lot of Dante. I use a lot more Dante than I do NDI. Very cool. I got to get into it more. I got to start using it more. It's just, I need a budget, and maybe that'll come middle of this year sometime, but we'll see. Hey, D-Brand is a cool group. Random things that they do, all sorts of crazy with Linus. It's very true. And MKBHD used to be a major proponent. That's actually why I did that to my headphones. It's because MKBHD did some spots with them early on. Like those headphones have looked that way since probably 2017 is when I put them on there, and they still look like the day. Oh, they're right here. They still look like the day I put those stickers on there. So shout out to D-Brand. I've used a couple of their things before. I actually had an old iPad that got really scratched up on the back because I had it in a bag that was on my bike and the bike scratched it somehow. So I had these like etches in the back, and I was like, oh shoot, I really messed this thing up, and I was going to use it. The kids are going to use it and whatever. So I bought a carbon fiber backing sticker from D-Brand, excuse me. I think it was like, I don't know, $15. Put it on there. It's perfect. It works great. And I still use that old iPad. I mean, it's here somewhere in a bag, but it is still functioning, and I use it sometimes for stuff. So, hey, have you ever A-B'd your M50s to, no, I haven't, a 770? I sure haven't, and I kind of want to do that. Hey, over on Twitch, hey, my headphones aren't working right now. Can you chat instead? But by the way, which game do you stream the most? Recently, I've been streaming Minecraft the most, and you can definitely talk to me in the chat. So you can find me there if you're a real person. Hey, I just found it a few minutes ago because you posted on it. Boom, you're welcome. or one of us did. Maybe he wasn't talking directly to me, but hey, so one thing that I've always wondered about Dante, do I need a dedicated box to be the primary clock source? Could one of those little Turtle AVIO boxes do the job? I think actually that's the point. Yes, you do need a clock, a single device that has basically the Dante. I don't know if it can be a computer, by the way, like a virtual sound card, but you need one device, which is kind of why I'm waiting to get into it, because I know that you need one device to be the clock on the network. So I believe part of all this announcement is these can be your clock for your network, and that's a big deal. I haven't seen a price point on any of this stuff, but we'll find that out. I don't use cans much anymore. I use my all clear RSM quads and my studio monitors. So we'll talk a little bit about that, because part of today's show, which is we're 41 minutes into the intro, part of today's show is I do want to talk about monitoring and headphones, and we'll get to that in a minute. When using clocking, I prefer the mixer to be the clocking, or just a dedicated clock source like a Big Ben. If I had the money, I would get one. I do love my D-Brand skins on my framework laptops. Oh, there you go. That's cool. Yeah, really neat. Yeah, good stuff, everybody. Thanks for chiming in. And hey, Nancy, if you are there, we can, you can chat to me in the chat, and I can respond to you in real time, because I guess you said maybe your headphones don't work, but you should find some speakers. So, cool stuff. All right, so Eamon's company has launched, and I'm pretty excited about that. He alluded that there was something going on that he was working on something, and to me late last year, and said it'll happen in the new year sometime. So I'm really excited that this is what it is. Dante AVA, one of the industry standards out there, and so I'm really excited to see him kind of flourish in that space. And who knows what's on the horizon? We'll see. All right. 5-year warranty included. So on those AV boxes, by the way. So, okay, let me step over now to today's conversation. So, after Alabama, we got talking about, I'm slouching here. After the Alabama trip, we got talking about, what could we be doing next? And Chris, who's very well connected in the world, he, hey, are you actually going to get around to Ableton today, or will you reschedule? Let's talk about it now. So Chris is actually really well connected with a lot of people, and he knows some bigger names of people that do stuff out in California and in Detroit and in Nashville and all over the place. So a little project came in that he was going to work on for MLK, which is coming up on Monday. And he also, out of our event from the weekend, said that he had a couple of requests for a couple of the arrangements that we had done. Now, fun fact, my wife was the person that arranged those songs prior to the event, and then we took them to the event, and then our team, individualized them, made all the parts their own. So what we do is we take a song and we record it. We get it to where we think it makes the most sense, where it doesn't sound super cheesy, and then we hand it to our group and say, all right, now make it the best we can. And they're really good at it. Like, we have musical minds, and I promise you, I'm not exaggerating this, but we have guys that can hear parts that are not there that will fill in and create cool varying types of chords like fifth, thirds, and minors and all sorts of things. And so they go after it. And then we record it. Well, we just do rough recordings, like things that don't take too long. We just get the tracks down. And then if we want to change anything, or if Chris wants to change anything, he can say, hey, for this part, do this instead. We'll re-record it, have it, send it out to the group while we're headed to the event. They can listen to it, or maybe the week before they can listen to it, and then we can kind of have it sorted away. So one of those songs that we arranged that my wife took was Abide, which is a song by the Worship Initiative, I think. And at least they have done it. And it's one of those songs that hasn't really become super popular yet, but several groups are picking it up. And so that was one of the things that we arranged. And turns out that that is one of the songs that then was requested from campus ministries and churches. Hey, we'd love an a cappella arrangement of that. So we are working on that as we speak. And the initial recording was done in GarageBand, but then we moved it over to Ableton Live. Now, I run Ableton Live 11 Intro. And so that is my go-to software. A lot of people use Ableton Live for like trap music and, electronic music and stuff like that. And then there's a whole group of people in the Christian world that use it for tracking and MIDI cues. And so you can download tracks from Multitrack, load them into Ableton, and then use like a foot pedal to basically send MIDI commands to move you through the song. And so there's actually a really cool video done by Churchfront, I think, where he shows how they use Multitrack. So like the bass player can't make it, they can punch in the bass line for the song, and then he can arrange it how he wants. And then he can basically cue it with a foot pedal. If he wants to do verse, he clicks on foot pedal number 1. If he wants to do chorus, he clicks on foot pedal number 2, and the MIDI commands go out, and Ableton at the end of the verse will then move on to the chorus, So the MIDI command stuff is really cool, and it's a very powerful tool. And because it speaks MIDI, you can integrate it with things like ProPresenter. So if you, for example, go from verse, how like the cliche worship, I don't know if you're in the worship world, worship minister world, but the cliche, a Christian non-denominational church will do like the bridge 600 times. Well, you can cue that. You can say, I want you to loop this until I tell you to go to the next thing. And so ProPresenter will know where you're at in the song and will call those slides by the MIDI commands that you're sending Ableton, because Ableton will then send out a MIDI cue and tell it, hey, redo the bridge, redo the bridge, redo the bridge, redo the bridge, into the chorus, into the ending. And so it will call those slides for you, and you don't need somebody on ProPresenter 7 clicking through every slide and always going back to the bridge and always going back to verse 2 and always going over here to the ending and it's all over, and like you don't have to do any of that. And then you can also then harmonize your MIDI commands with your stage lights. If you're running a DMX USB box, then you can use Light Key for free if you have 24 channels or less, which is not very much. But you could use a program like Light Key to automate your lights. And so if you're going to a big chorus, chorus 3 is kind of a big final chorus that you're going to do, and the whole band's in, you want the lights to be big and bright or doing something fun, you can kind of build your lighting show and then listen for those MIDI commands so that it doesn't go off early and you don't have your big reveal until the end or whatever. So if you're in the theater world, a program like Ableton, if you're running tracks, can basically command the entire fleet of ProPresenter, Light Jockey, or Light Jockey. Nobody uses that anymore. Key Light? Is it Key Light? No. Light Key? I don't know. Whatever the very common USB DMX program is, where you can set it up to even look like your show. That's all basically, you can do it all from Ableton, which means that this becomes the heart of your coordination between most of your technology. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that is the only thing you're running, but it could be a big part of it. And so when you start a song, it knows this is verse 1. You can even then route, for example, tracks to certain things. So if you only want the click track to be going to headphones and not, or like to your monitoring system and not to, obviously out the mains, you can tell it, this click track, when I want it on, I want it to play, but I only want it to go out to, inputs 9 and 10. and then it will go, you route 9 and 10 on your board over to the to your headphones or in-ear monitors or whatever it is that you're using. So you can do it all from Ableton, and it's pretty powerful stuff. Like, it's a pretty great software. The intro software version of it is $100. So I think that's a pretty good deal. I wish they were a sponsor, because I'd offer you a coupon code. But I'm actually running Ableton 11, which is what you're seeing here. And they have Ableton 12 now. So, yeah, I need to learn Ableton. Again, YouTube, there's a lot of free resources out there that show you how to kind of get started. So my MIDI controller came with a light license. Oh, there you go. So, yeah, that is why. Because Ableton is able to basically command the whole team, the whole fleet. And if you're running tracks for your worship band or whatever, here's the other thing is, like, we may get into the realm of, so we're primarily an a cappella group. That's like our specialty. So we might even get into the realm of, well, if you're a worship leader and your alto calls in sick, you could run a track and run it through Ableton. So I don't think a lot of a cappella churches are this sophisticated yet, but there is options to kind of do that. So I'm a Pro Tools person. Yeah, I actually have recorded with Pro Tools. I wasn't the producer. I was the talent, seems like such a wrong word, but I was one of the artists, and they were using Pro Tools, but I haven't actually edited with it. So I'm way out of practice with Pro Tools. I've been using Reaper for well over 10 years, and I'm fairly comfortable with it. That's another software that I'm not super aware of, and so that would be a good something to kind of dip my toe in. I think of Ableton kind of like what's it called? Central Control, Joe DeMax's software. Central Control. Yeah, centralcontrol.io. And Joe DeMax and his team have developed this to like integrate with tons and tons and tons of different softwares, and this is kind of the core of that operation. And so you can coordinate things, and it's basically a giant if this then that trigger, and that's really cool. Joe's a great guy. I've talked to him a couple of times and seen him at shows, and he seems like he's really interested in making the best possible product. So big fan of that. I have used Central Control a little bit in my Bird Dog days. Probably the last year we were at Bird Dog, I had a license that Joe had sent me, and I coordinated that with a teleprompter that we had. It was a Telstream NDI teleprompter, and I used that to kind of control the script. And what was neat about that is you just load it into a Google Doc, and then it just pulls it from the Google Doc. And that was super simple, like couldn't have been more simple. And then you can coordinate the speed of it with like a foot pedal or whatever, and basically control your own teleprompter for your shows. If you wanted to script something in a teleprompter but look at the lens, kind of like what I'm doing here, but I'm not using a teleprompter. I'm actually just seeing the output of vMix so I can look at the show. My eyes sometimes drift north because there is a confidence monitor that's the HDMI out of the camera that is tracking my focus and stuff like that, where I can see a little bigger. It also shows me waveforms, it shows me vector scopes, and it shows me the parade. So yeah, I can kind of get an idea as to what the shot looks like, and when the colors change, you can see the parade kind of like moving up and down. It's really fun. I'm a fan of Harrison Mixbus, but I don't have enough experience to know if I should be proud of that or not. Anyway, I really do like it. That's funny because I feel that way about a lot of things that I use. Is like, I don't know if I would get up in front of people and tell them how to use it. I'm not that comfortable, but I can be, and I'm dangerous enough. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of Central Control. Yeah, and a lot of people are. I think that it's a good piece of software that it doesn't get enough credit. So there you go. I've converted several people over to using it. What's the primary modules you use in Central Control? Including one dedicated Mac guy who bought a PC just to run it before Joe came out with a cross-platform version. Yes, that was recent right here, right? Core runs on Mac and Windows, and kudos to Joe and his team for bridging that, because that's actually not as easy. It's such like it's a subheading, but it's such a big coding feat that to make it the same and make it operate the same and look the same on two different OSs is not as simple as just porting it over. So good for them. That's great. All right, let's talk briefly about then. So this is Abide. This is the song that we're currently mixing. Now, when you open Ableton, you get into, basically it dumps you into what this is. And if I were to open a new show, let's just open my template here. So Ableton setup, this is my first one. Do you want to save this? No, I don't want to make any changes I made. So when I open, oh, that's funny. This is not what I thought it was. Why is, whoops. Okay, well, anyways, let's go back to Abide then. So when you open Ableton, it opens it up in this view. Now, there won't be any of these in here because it is basically a new set. Matter of fact, if I say new live set, there we go. This is the default. This is what it looks like when you first open it, and you might be like, what is going on here? Well, in this view, you basically do a lot of your sound capture, and you do a lot of, like, guys that are doing electronic music, trap, doing a bunch of that stuff, they'll operate in here. They'll record their clips, and then they'll mix them all together. And what they're doing here is they'll mix them in order. So, like, all the sounds that happen on the first verse, they'll put it here, and they'll even label this, like, verse 1, like this. And then they'll do, like, on line 2, you know, it might be pre-chorus. Or pre-chorus 1. Usually the pre-chorus is generally the same. And then this might be chorus 1, and so on and so forth. And they'll load all, you know, their new audio tracks. They'll load a whole bunch of them in here, and they'll make these, you know, this is going to be, you know, the kick drum, and this is going to be a shaker, and this is going to be somebody going, yeah, in the background. And then they load them in. And then as they go through, they can kind of play the song, and then they can select what parts they want, but it will play verse 1 until they get to the end of verse 1. And it will either, you can set it to loop, so it'll either loop again, or then you can say, okay, get ready to play the pre-chorus, and then when the pre-chorus is going, they say, get ready to play the chorus, and it will actually sequence the song. So then when you go over to the arrangement view, it's actually recorded it in the order that you want with all the parts that you want, so then you can see all your parts that are listed here. Now, one of the shining things about Ableton is when you get comfortable with it, there's a ton of shortcuts. And so the actual hunting and clicking and looking for things, that becomes like a Mac. Honestly, it becomes very quick and easy to use when you're jumping around via shortcuts. And so Ableton has a list of them, and as you get editing and as you get producing stuff, it becomes very quick to use because you get comfortable with the shortcuts. So we load them up in this view, and then they show over in arrangement view. Now, when we are doing what we do, okay, so I'm going to reload Abide. No, I don't want to save this. When we are doing what we're doing and arranging music, we operate mostly in this view because we are building a song based on parts. And so there's like a creative part where we sit around and we sing, and then we put the basic. We might stand around the apex. We might stand around the apex and just record a bass, like not a bass, B-A-S-S track, but a B-A-S-E track with all of us on it, just on a standard, you know, condenser microphone, and one that has a wide pickup pattern, so you can stand basically on the side of it and it will still pick you up. But I have an Apex 435, which is a great little microphone for just that general use, and it's really responsive when it comes to like guitars and stuff like that too. But then we'll individualize the tracks, and I actually will use the RE20, especially for male voices, bass voices in particular. But a lot of like controlling plosives and stuff like that. So hard P's, T's. This microphone does all of that really well. So I really like the RE20 for that. For higher voices, sopranos, especially like girls that are doing step outs, or if you have a first alto, if you know what that is in the choral world, a condenser microphone like this Apex will catch that brightness actually better than what I think this guy will do. But if you have a second alto who's singing the part above a tenor line, this guy all day, RE20, and that's my wife's natural register is like a lower first or a higher second alto. So we use this one for her. I got a text from somebody that's watching the stream. Hey, my main modules are the vMix module and the Stream Deck. Right on. See, that's something that I need to buy another Stream Deck and play around with that a lot because that would be really cool. Though it's great for automating triggers between vMix and that ATEM switcher. There you go. Because you can always... I love Companion for that reason too. vMix fires out a key and fill lower thirds and opens and closes the keyer all on its own. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I do like that. I think that's the way that Tom Sinclair has his setup as well. And a queue up for the roll video in vMix, and as soon as vMix hits the program bus, it starts the playback. So it's perfectly locked in every single time. Yeah, okay, that automation's tight. That's really cool. We can do the same thing with QLab too, but I haven't gotten that far into it. So see that level of automation where it's like, you know, really well thought out like that. I love that. I love a system that does not require the team to be specialists in everything, because quite frankly, those people don't exist in abundance usually in the organization in which you work. Typically you have one guy that's wired that way, or maybe two if you're really lucky. And so if you can find software that you can do, you can integrate it and get it to do what you want it to do like that. That's such a big, because that automation tool will be available every time you need it to be available. That's the difference between automating something and volunteers, is like you need the volunteers to be available. So I have somebody that runs my Pro Presenter stuff on Sundays, but like if she gets sick, guess what? It's me, boy. I'm getting my iPad out. I'm connecting to the controller in Pro Presenter, and I'm running it from the booth while I'm cutting video. So that's hard, you know, like if you can automate stuff and at least have it as a backup, if not your main. But all right, so let me respond to this so it'll stop buzzing. Funny stuff though. Oh, whoa, are people reaching out to me? Yeah, okay. All right, so so this is kind of our initial arrangement. We haven't like refined this super well. We're gonna have a recording session on Tuesday of next week to work on this a bit, because this is pretty much just the basics. We're splitting them out and then we'll start like refining them. But what's a couple of things to know about Ableton, and actually about recording stuff in general, if you're thinking like, oh, I want to play around in there. First of all, understand the machine that you have and the tasks that you have it doing. You'll notice in the top right hand corner, you'll see like a little orange thing moving. That's my CPU usage, and your CPU usage is going to be a direct correlation to how much latency is introduced in the recording when you are recording. So, for example, when you are doing electronic music and you're adding plugins and sound effects and things to certain, just to certain sounds, it adds latency. Every plugin adds latency to your recording. And so when you're listening, when you hit record and you're listening to it in your headphones, there's actually a delay. And we were recording something on Tuesday of this week, Tuesday night, and I'll share that story maybe after it launches. But we were recording something Tuesday night in here, and the number one complaint I had was there's a slight delay. Now, there are some ways to kind of combat this. I'll tell you, I think what was really going on, I'm going to have my wife come up this evening and test it out, because she's comfortable with letting me know that something's not right. And I need those people in my life. QLabs is great for doing what I'm doing with AV shows with a Q. There you go. I have looked at QLab. I haven't really played with it too much, which is, that seems to be the theme of the show whenever you guys suggest something. So there's a delay with listening with your ears. Now, there's a way to kind of configure this in best case scenario. The majority of the time, first when you open Ableton, you need to configure your audio and how it is that you're bringing in that audio. Now, there is like a default, okay, no audio. There's the DirectX, which is leveraging your CPU to basically bring in those channels. But if you actually have an audio interface like I do, then you can use an ASIO, and that is none other than XUSB or the actual X Live driver. Okay, so when I click on X Live, it actually says now you need to use XUSB. Well, that's kind of a nice little automation. But then in the light version, you can bring 16 channels into the show. Now you can do them in stereo or you can do them in mono. All my inputs, all my microphones are mono channels, so I don't need stereo. But I could easily turn this off and bring in 15 and 16 as stereo if I wanted to. It's literally just click on them and decide. 3 and 4 are here. So 3, this is actually this microphone, but it's actually the studio mic. So I'm going to actually label it that. And then if I hit OK, then it remembers what that is. But if I plug in a guitar or something into my 1820, UMC 1820, then I can label that channel so I don't forget which it is. And it should label it here. So check this out now. Channel 3, it says studio mic. It's so nice that that's labeled. So you don't have to remember channel 3, channel 3, channel 3. You label it, and then there's no doubt which one it's supposed to be. Now, we're gonna shut this all down here, because not shut it down. We're gonna change the channels to input 1 because they're all listening to input 3, and that's gonna be a problem later on in life because we don't want them all to be responding. We just want one to respond. So when we go to record something, we change it to channel 3. Now, the input for this is different than the input for vMix, okay? And what I mean by that is the preamp. So the preamp inside of Ableton can be altered and finessed a lot more than when I'm bringing it into other programs directly off of the 1820 and the X32 core. So when I'm routing it through, I want to be conscious of how loud this is, because it may be crazy loud and I may not want that. So what I can do there is actually go back to the arrangement view, and I can look at what channel. I had the lead lit up, right? So if I put this on, then I can see what my input is. Now, if I, what are we doing here? Go back here and find out what's happening. This channel is off, and the reason it's off is because I don't have the monitor lit up. When I switch it to auto, this sound comes out of my monitors, okay? It also gets added to the reverb. And if I want to just do one more thing, I'm not getting any feedback right now, so I'll keep going. If I bring my soundboard over, you can see that 15 and 16, which are, why didn't this save? 15 and 16, which is my master output, okay? The master output is the sound coming out of like the final output. So 15 and 16, if I solo those, this is what the track will sound like at the end. But when I'm getting ahead of myself here, but when I am operating in here, I'm going to change the output to actually be, well, that's fun. I'm going to change it was like, I don't have a DJ horn in here for any reason, but okay, so I can change, though, the output to be my headphones, which is actually 9 and 10. So now if I go back to the channels here, 9 and 10 are going to be my headphones. So when I turn that on, let's see if it does it again. Check, check, check. So when I turn that on, now 9 and 10 are what my headphones are listening to. So when I want to feed the audio that the person is singing in the microphone directly into their headphones so they can hear it, they can hear their head voice, or beyond their head voice, they can hear it in their headphones. That's the way that I route it out to them. Fun times. Now, you would also not necessarily send all of these channels to the left and right speakers, because you just want them to go out the headphones. So here I would put them out headphones, and I would attach the headphones to my studio monitors and then send that signal to them. This is why I want a headphone preamp, by the way, because all this routing is very confusing. So there you go. All right, so when we are, let me just show you kind of my workflow real quick, and then I'll take any questions that may come in, but we'll wrap it up so that we can not make this too long in the tooth. When I'm ready to record, what you have to do is you have to arm the track. Boop. And there is a way, by the way, side trip, you can go into preferences and actually change this, record, wrap, and launch. You can change this to allow you to record on multiple channels, okay, at the same time. So if you're doing multi-tracking, so if you have a guy playing his guitar and that's plugged into the system, and then you have him singing in a microphone, you can bring both of those signals in independently and mix them or record them live and then mix them as you want. A lot of artists do that, and you want to be able to have that option. It is not on by default. Okay? It's not on by default, so you need to be able to do that, and it is done here under, right here, exclusive. Okay? These will be lit up. You want to uncheck those. Okay? Just like this. And then multi-tracking is enabled so that you can now technically record multiple times. You can light all of these up at the same time, bring in all those different inputs. The band could play, for example, and you could record them all at the same time. This is going to eat up CPU big time on your computer, but if you have a nice machine like I do, then that probably won't be too much of an issue. The thing that you're going to have to fight against is the latency. And there's two things that you need to really be paying attention with the latency, okay? First of all, I kind of got into this and then I really got sidebarred. The first thing is this right here under audio. You want to select your driver type and your audio device. If you do that, you're going to have to configure your inputs and you're going to have to configure your outputs. All right? Then, if you're using a audio interface like I am, you can click on hardware setup and it's actually going to open whatever the controller is. Now, in my case, I'm running 4800 hertz, and so that needs to match in your product or your project, which, by the way, is usually set here to 44.1. So you can manually change it if you have it as the DirectX, but you have to change it on the controller if you have a USB controller. So here we set it whatever we want it to be set at. We set it within the Behringer X32, which is actually done on the X32 and not here. So it tells me that my sample size is 48, and then over here it shows up as 48. All right, I don't have to change it inside software because it has to be changed at the root of your recording, which is kind of nice. So 48 is kind of our standard that we use. It's the same standard for NDI, by the way, but 48 is the standard. And then the buffer size. Now, the general consensus that I can find is that they say choose the buffer size that provides you with the most reliable, lowest latency, but go as high as you can. I have found that mine is somewhere between 64 samples and 128. If I change it here, okay, testing. Hey, I'm back. Hey, note to self, don't mess with the bit rate when you are live, because that's going to screw you up. Sorry about that, everybody. Hopefully I wasn't dead for too long. Let's see how long. Let's see where you lost me. One second. Okay, so you lost me just when I got started talking about the USB stuff when I made that change. Lesson learned. Okay, so I knew that was going to happen. I'm an idiot. I should have known that better. So we change our sample rate on the actual X32 inside the X USB stuff, and then that translates over to all this software. So when it's on DirectX, you can change all these things. But when it's being fed from somewhere else, it takes whatever it's been given. So I set it at 48, and then I set it at 128 is what I had it at for this recording session and the one prior that we were giving some like latency issues. But now I have it set to 64 samples, which actually sounds just fine. Like I haven't lost a whole lot, but I am compromising a little bit. So then you can do driver error compensation, but I actually don't find this to do too much. And so when you're listening to when you're monitoring live, you'll have a slight delay, and the key is to try and get it down as far as you can. So you can actually like pull down on this and make this 0, which is right here. And then we say, let's go negative 5.33, which makes the overlay then 0 milliseconds. But no guarantees that that's really going to work like perfectly. So yeah, there you go. But that's where you set all this up, and that's where you monitor your latency. The more samples, the harder the CPU will run. And also then the more plugins, the harder it will run, and the more latency that will get added. So know that before you start, is like latency in this world is king. And when everything is run via buffers and memory and yada, 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 and your CPU level, then that's where you got to pay attention. Now, my CPU, as you can see, is hovering between 3 and 4%. That's fine. I get a warning if it hits 50, and I've never hit 50. So this computer is sufficient. I can give you the stats on this machine if that is something that you want to check out. Hey, it's always fun to hang out. Good to see you all. So appreciate the conversation, ramping up my audio game this year. But until next time, take it easy, Jeremy. Always a blast to have you by. Thanks for drinking coffee and stopping by. Hey, it's Mac-based, just FYI. Renting is a pretty good price. If you're not using it every day, it's great. Same with their lighting and their video parts too. Oh, right on. Hey, I guess you found one to use. Great people just poke their head into my office after that. Great people just poked my... You broke it. If I change it here, mute. Hey, music, and we're back. Sorry, everybody. My bad. Well, vendors are calling, so I guess I have to get out of my office and do random work. We'll chat again later. Always appreciate you, Zach. Thanks for stopping by, as always. And I will land this ship here. So a couple of things to just pay attention to. So latency is a big deal, and those are the places that you kind of finesse that a lot. And depending on how many plugins that you're using, that will increase the latency. One sidebar, though, that I found out is when you use the onboard effects and plugins, they don't add latency. So the plugins that Ableton gives you, those are 0 latency. The ones that you buy and add to your fleet, those ones will add latency. And if you want to find out how much latency, what you do is you go over here to one of the things. Let's do the dynamics compressor, because that's one that we sometimes use. And we hover over it, right? Or do we hover over it here? Yeah, here. You hover over the title. So when you've added it, you hover over the title and look in the bottom corner. See that like it lights up? Latency. It tells you how many samples of latency it's going to add. And then you can go back to that screen and see what the latency has been added to, per plugin. And the more you stack, the more latency you're going to get. So just FYI. Now, so the way that we do this is I click on the track that I want to use, and I arm the track for recording. It is showing a gray bar here because it's unmuted in the headphones. And so it will record, but you won't hear it because it's not outputting anything. But it is there. So if I hit record, it will record whatever it is on whatever source I have told it, and we select our source here. So it will record whatever's being done. It just won't put it in my headphones. If I want it in the headphones, I click auto, and then that turns to green, and then I would be able to hear it out my headphones as well. So there you go. So then we arm, and we hit record. You can, if you're doing what I'm doing and recording people singing, and you want them to have a little like prior, a couple of bars to kind of hear the tempo, then you can select that here under the metronome, and it's called the count in. And so I don't have any selected because we actually had a tone that we were using to keep us in pitch. And so I didn't need a bar or anything like that, but you could select 1 bar, 2 bar, 4 bar to do that, and the click sound. So woodblock, a click, or the classic. There's really only those 3. And then you can turn on the metronome if you want that on the recording. You can light it up. So you just click on this box, and then when you hit go, it should actually click in the track. Now, this is all routed through my keyboard, or through my soundboard, so you're probably not going to see that. But it's all routed specifically. But in the headphones, you'll hear it actually clicking and going to the headphones themselves. Okay. And then if we can disarm the track so that we're not recording. And then if you want to hear what's actually been sung, it's just spacebar. Just play it. Now, my computer, let me see where this is actually outputting. All of these are outputting to master, which should be 15. Let me check the master track, though. Master should be going out to 15, yes. So I'm not too sure why I'm not hearing anything. You notice that when I start it, and I'm running vMix, and I'm running all this other stuff, and a bunch of tabs for surfing the internet, my CPU spikes, so I'm getting close to 10 when I'm running the actual program. It's actually getting close to 10, but so it does chew up CPU. Kind of dedicate time to just use this software and not a whole bunch of things. If I could just show you one quick picture, and then I'll kind of land this. We did have kind of we were recording on Tuesday night, and so let me find the post here real quick. I do make another cameo appearance. It is real. Here it is. This is what we were doing. And I ran out of good headphones. So not that these are not good headphones, but I bought them for comms, and these are the Audio Technica GDL3s. So they're gaming headphones. They still have those Audio Technica drivers. I think these are more like the 20s, but they were sufficient, and I gave the good headphones to the artists. And so, yeah, when I was spending some time, there's my actual operation. Now, you can run 2 screens in Ableton, and you can have both views open, which I really like. So as you can see here, I had the arrangement view in the front, and then I had the actual mixer on the left. And I like that because the mixer shows in real time all of the channels and how much they're... So if I need to make slight adjustments to someone's volume level, or to, where they're positioned, for example, like if everybody's singing and I want the altos kind of on the left and the tenors on the right, then I can split those in real time and listen to that happening, but also watch their levels. So that's what this is more of like the mixer for me. And then this view, which is on my main screen, my number 1 screen, this then is showing me the waveforms and actually the recording portion of it. So that is my initial setup. Now, when we get some things done, I might share more of that. I need to figure out the audio because I'm routing audio 100 different ways here. But that's generally what we're up to right now, and pretty excited that it's kind of coming together. We just finished a project on Wednesday, and so that will be launched. It probably be on my Facebook page. I might try and put it on my YouTube page, my John O'Canute one, just as something that we did. It's going to be a 30-second clip is all it is, because it's a part of a bigger project. But I think Friday or Saturday that launches, and so I'll get the details. Stay tuned for that. And that will be my video editing and my audio editing abilities on display. So that's pretty cool that that's going to happen. All right, let me pull up the chat one last time, see where we're all at. I think we're good. And so it is now 11:23. I need to do a little workout because I haven't. Oh, man, quick story there. So I was watching a YouTube channel where a guy ran 100 miles in a day, actually in 30 hours, and that was the marathon. That was the goal. And they just documented his struggle through it all, but also like the whole team around him and his wife and everything. That was really cool. Kara and Nate, for those of you who watch travel YouTube channels. Last year he did 100 miles, and I thought, I used to run, and I'm a little bit inspired, and so I'm going to go for a walk/run and see how it goes. Well, that was fun. I will do it again. I will, keep working at that. But yikes, I ripped the leg muscles really bad. And so yesterday I was very sore, woke up very stiff, and then today I'm also again very sore. So I'm going to get out the rowing machine and I'm going to row, because that's a little easier on the legs, although it is a lot of leg muscle work. It is a little easier. That will be my exercise. I kind of stretch a bit, get the get the legs feeling like warming them up a little bit, and then tomorrow I'll go for my walk/run. So, and it's going to be a beautiful day today here in the beautiful state of Tennessee, and it's going to be a beautiful day tomorrow. And so, perfect day for doing what I want to do. Yes, Kara and Nate are awesome. I have been following them for a very long time, and they had some big announcements at the beginning of 25, which is cool. But I have also lived through them a bit. Actually, they are the reason why I so badly want to go on an Antarctic cruise through the Drake Passage and then going to like see all the wildlife in Antarctica, because that just looks so stinking cool. And their trip, I kind of like a little seasickness. I like a little daring passing the Drake Passage, but that would be a very big journey. And I think my kids will need to be pretty much in college by the time we are able to do that. So probably another 10 years away, but that was that convinced me that that's a trip I definitely want to go on. And hopefully by then more cruising ships and companies will be doing that trip. So we shall see. It's also like crazy expensive, so I'm going to need to save until then. But yes, very interested in going down there and seeing that. I loved Alaska. I've gone twice, both on Princess Cruises, once with just my wife and then once with my kids and my wife, and that was so cool. We have so many great memories from that trip. Really a big fan of it. My wife's like, there are other things to do in this world than go cruising, and I'm like, can't hear you. So we're in good stuff. But Antarctica is definitely one of my things that I really want to do. Hey, if you go, document it well. Seriously, I will definitely do that. I'll milk every dollar. Antarctica is on my bucket list as well. Let's go. Seriously, it's gonna be it. That would be an adventure for me. That would be like once in a lifetime. Get to see it. So on Kara and Nate's channel, they slept outside in Antarctica one night. They like gave them sleeping bags, and they actually slept on Antarctica. It was so stinking cool. But they saw a lot of wildlife. Of course, they did a polar bear plunge and on and on and on. But they had a very nice suite because of who they are. I think they got a good deal. And so they were able to stay in a really nice suite and, yeah, just kind of romanticized the whole trip, which I liked. My in-laws are big fans of cruises, but I have never been before. All right, here we go. Get my soapbox out. I'll step on my soapbox. Here's the thing about cruising that I love. I'm going on vacation. I don't have to worry about the details. The biggest decision I have to make, really, is how much do I want to spend on excursions and what time do I want to eat. That's it. The entertainment options are there. You want to go or not? Just yes or no. You want to eat in the main dining room or do you want to eat at the buffet? Yes or no. Go ahead. Super simple decision making. Hey, the kids want to go swimming. Sure. In Alaska. Sure. It's going to be cold. Like, what else are we going to do? Hey, let's sit out on the balcony for 30 minutes. Sure. Hey, let's read a book. Sure. Let's put the kids on their screens so that we can enjoy coffee on the balcony. Sure. Let's order room service. Sure. It's just like you can just say yes to pretty much everything, even if it's not your thing, because you're going to do about 100 things that are your thing on that cruise. And people complain, they're like, oh, it's just so boring. You're locked on a ship. It's like, it is what you make it, man. So like go walk. My wife and I love to walk, and our kids are kind of that way too. But we love to walk, so we just like go walk on the promenade, go walk around the ship, go discover whatever's around, stumble onto the free coffee shop and ice cream store, where you just kind of like, oh, sure, I'll have an ice cream, or sure, I'll go to the International Cafe and get donuts, or like, seriously, just go and just say, yeah, I'll do that. And then like I said, the biggest thing you have to decide is what are you going to do when you get to a port? So are you going to go and do the thing that everybody does? Do you plan to come back to this place in the next 10 years? Because if not, go and do the big thing. So in Skagway, go on the White Pass Trail train. You got to do that once and go all the way up into Canada and then all the way back. That's a fun train. It is a train ride. Like you're sitting on a train watching the world pass you. But like everybody does that. You do that once when you go to Skagway. If you're going to go to Juneau, there's whale watching and there is fishing and there's the salmon bake. That's a big thing in Juneau. So go to the salmon bake, and that's a big buffet of people cooking salmon in like maple flavoring, by the way. It's so good. Go and do the salmon bake. Go and see the salmon run. Go and see the lumberjack show. That's all in Juneau. And then in Ketchikan, there's a lot of history, but it's actually a fairly well-traveled town, and it's on the coast, and it's south. And so it's just temperate all the time. It's like 50 degrees most of the time, except in the dead of winter. So, yeah, you just go and see the town. Our favorite things to do in Ketchikan, I think that's where the Raptor Reserve is, which is where they rescue owls and eagles. And that was really neat, really like educational. There's a guy that makes totem poles. So, yeah, that's cool. We're going to go check that out. He was in the middle of making one. He said, it takes me about 3 or 4 months to like dedicate and do this. And so that's what he does when he makes totem poles in the traditional way that they do that. And it's just fascinating to see the tools he uses and go for a walk in the woods. We went, the first year we went in 2019, we went on a rainforest walk, which you had to take a boat to get there. And so they took you out on this like Screaming Eagle boat. And you have to wear a life vest, and then which is fine. Safety first. And then you get off on this like island, practically this remote place, and they've carved out this nature trail, and they talk to you about how old this place is, and animals they find, and slugs and toads and all sorts of things. So it's really kind of cool. Anyway, go and do it. Like, yeah, what I love about cruising is you can go and just relax. The plans, you just say yeah when something comes up. It's like, do you want to see the show tonight? Nah, I'll pass. Typically when I say no to things on cruises, I regret saying no. And so if it's like this show is on for 2 nights, try and get tickets to one of them, or try and get seats at one of them, because we did that where The Magician was going to be on 2 nights, and we skipped the first night because we were all exhausted. And then we tried to go the second night. We went 20 minutes early, and there wasn't a seat to be found. So that was like, bummer. Like, the kids don't get to see it. We don't get to see it. So we went into one of the jazz like lounges and sat there and listened to them play music. And yeah, we don't spend a fortune on them either. Like, our biggest thing is getting on them, but then like we reserve a few dollars for excursions. But other than that, like, we're not drinkers, and so our bill is usually pretty low by the time the cruise is over. So we're not the target audience for many cruisers. Hey, I've heard a tip from a frequent cruiser: go on a ship with less than 200 passengers, because the smaller ships get to way cooler places than the larger ships. It's true. Smaller, I don't know. It is true that the smaller ships do go to more like secluded places, and you get to see more things. First find out if cruising is right for you, because the smaller ships are typically the same price or maybe a little more expensive, because their operating costs and fees are still relatively the same as the bigger cruises. So go on a mid-sized ship that holds like 2,000 passengers with another 1,000 crew, somewhere in the 3,000 realm. Don't do like the Oasis of the Sea as your first, because people have come back from that cruise and said it's basically like a giant floating hotel, and you never really even like know you're on the ocean. Go for a mid-sized ship. Do like Caribbean Princess. That's a ship that's really a good size. She's a little older. Ruby Princess is a little newer, mid-2000s, or a ship like I think Oosterdam from Holland America. That's an older crowd. So if you want like not quite a party atmosphere, you want an older, quieter crowd, Holland America is great for that. But yeah, and then if you really like cruising, then for sure go on a smaller ship that's like a few hundred, because they will go to small ports. They can actually dock at small ports that the big ships can't get into. And then you see more authentic places instead of it all being like tourist traps. You see a lot more of like people actually where they live. One thing I've learned: always book your excursions through the cruise ship, so they'll take responsibility if you get left behind. Yes, that is part of why the excursion, you can get cheaper excursions on land, but you're on your own in terms of getting back safely and on time before the ship leaves. If you book an excursion through the cruise line, the ship will not leave until you return. And we had that happen to us one time when we were in Turks and Caicos back in 2011, and we went all the way out to this lighthouse that was a military base, and then when we got coming back like it was like 10 minutes before the ship was supposed to push away, so the lines would be in and the gangplank and everything. But we got back and everything was still ready to go, and they scanned our cards, and the way to get back on the ship was all still there. They hadn't pulled away, none of that, because they knew our excursion was still coming in, and we got in and got up to our room in time to see the ship pushing off. So literally it took us the time to walk up the stairs and up the elevators, so maybe 5 minutes for them to really pull off the lines and be ready to go. So they had everything else buttoned up and ready. But we did push away on time, but we were cutting it a little bit close. But we were not the cause. It was the donkeys on the road. Fun thing about Turks and Caicos is they imported donkeys ages ago, back in like the early 1900s, and they have been a thriving species on the island ever since. Antarctica laws. Some landings only allow smaller ships and groups. Larger ones are not allowed, or often due to the weather and etc. Yes, I've heard of many in Antarctica. I've heard of many stops being canceled because of weather. But you are right. The smaller ships are usually permitted to go, whereas the bigger ones are not permitted to go on land. And so you get to see a lot of it, but you don't get to experience the onshore excursions, which is part of the reason why you would go on a cruise. It is good to know. I did music ministry in Alaska a few times. I flew through the interior in a bush plane. It was awesome. Yes, that is so stinking fun. Bush planes are everywhere. You know, they got big pontoons. Those of us who are from northern parts of the world, beaver planes and such are not as uncommon a sight. But if you're from, like Nashville, you don't see beaver planes. You don't see bush planes around here. That's just not a part of the culture. But like you get north of Barrie in Ontario, and then you start seeing bush planes on the water. And then especially when you get to like North Bay, Temagami, Thunder Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, there's all sorts of bush planes north of that in Canada, period. Just not as prevalent everywhere else. Anyway, so that's, I don't know why we got off on cruising, but that is definitely something that I would recommend if you are ever interested in going, mostly because, the Antarctic, Kate and Era. Wow. Kara and Nate. My brain. So yes, Kara and Nate kind of got me inspired to want to go, as like to add it to my bucket list, as Randy said, because it looks so cool, and it's one of those places that like much of the world will not see. So if that's like one of those, if you're going to go to somewhere unique, maybe that's a good place. Now, convincing my wife to go in the summer to a Arctic might be tricky. But if there's a cruise ship involved and it's everything's taken care of, you don't have to worry about the excursions or about the food or anything like that. That's what I love about cruising, is you don't have to worry about all those things. Where are we going to eat tonight? We're going to have Mexican again for the third day in a row? Are we going to have Chinese? Are we going to get food poisoning? We don't really have to worry too much of that because it's pretty consistent. Now, as the cruise goes along, for those of you who haven't been, you will know that the menu tends to repeat itself later on in the trip, unless they go to a U.S. port or even a Europe port. One of the trips there's 3 cruises out there. Mine is the Antarctic one. Another one that my wife and I really want to go to is the British Isles, in particular Scotland. In particular, Scotland, we would love to see via cruise ship. And then third, the East Coast. So we've done Caribbean, Alaska, and we'd love to go to the East Coast in the fall. However, she's a school teacher, so that might be impossible. So we might have to leave that one for later. But the Scotland one happens late spring, early summer, so we might be able to make that happen. But again, a little pricey. We'll have to go across the pond to New Hampshire. No, I'm kidding. Southampton is where we'd have to go. We have to go to Southampton to cruise, because that's the major cruise port in Europe, out of London. And then so you fly into Heathrow, and then you go down to Southampton via train, and then you get on the cruise ship, and then they drop you off in Southampton, and you fly back out. So that's how that would work. But we would love to see the old world. And, wife's really into castles, and I am really into the Scottish Highlands. You want to know what it was? You want to know what got me into the Scottish Highlands? Okay, I was going to grab it, but apparently it's not on the shelf. What got me into the Scottish Highlands was the board game Boxcars. And what my wife would do is as we would play, the original game is a Europe board, and we learned all these names of these towns in the Highlands that we had never heard of before. And so what we would do is if our train was headed, if you know the game, you travel along routes and you buy routes so that you can use them freely and whatever. But as we were buying up routes, we would look up these towns and we would just Google search them. Now be careful, because some of those towns have similar names or the same names as things on the internet that you probably have no business looking at. So be careful. But we would always type in Scottish Highlands, whatever the name is, Wick or whatever. And we would learn, first of all, how to pronounce the name correctly, because that's not what you think. And then we would learn just something about the town, look at pictures. And it was a really cool way to kind of like see a little bit about where we were playing in this board game. And then we really got hooked on that. So then I went to Google Earth in my VR headset and we traveled around some of those places. And then we really kind of got like, we need to see this. So I would love to go on a cruise just to see it from afar, see it as a tourist, and then probably go over there and actually spend a week and really see some of these small towns. We even went to the extreme to be like, how much would it cost us to live there? But it's not in the cards right now to move to Scotland, so we're not doing that. Yes, I agree. It would be something to see. So that's also on the list. So the British Isles, which is the Scotland. So Knutsen is a Norwegian name, so I would love to go and see Norway. But that's a different cruise too. That's also on the list, but it's kind of fourth. But the British Isles, Antarctic, this is mine, and East Coast. So East Coast would be the cheapest out of all of them. That might be the one that we get to do next. But now that we've cruised with kids, it might be difficult to not take them, especially as they keep aging. They keep getting older and more independent. It might be more fun to cruise with them. So I'm really tempted to just take them back to Alaska, but we've done that a couple of times. And we've done that a couple of times. So all good. Anyways, there you go. There it is. There's the extra. That's the bonus. That was for free. And you're welcome. Because I know that's what you were all really wanting to know. So good times. Okay. I need to go do work. And we need to get on with whatever it is we're going to get on with. So I will say adieu. And hopefully y'all are doing well, taking care of each other and yourselves. That's really important, so that you can join me again next time right here on YouTube or Twitch, whichever you prefer. And as we progress with Ableton, as we do some more projects, so we've got some things kind of on the calendar for the next few weeks. So as we progress and as I learn more, we'll go down that rabbit hole, and I'll share with you what it is that I've learned, so that you guys can also not have to go through my mistakes. So yeah, hopefully it's fun. Thank you so much for being along for the ride. Always appreciate you, and especially those of you who stayed right to the end. Have a great day. Hey, great timing. I've got a meeting in 15 minutes. Yeah, I did that on purpose. No, thank you so much, everybody. Always appreciate you. And stay tuned. I'm having a hard time like putting up my ideas before, like the day before on YouTube. So I need to sit down and brainstorm. Maybe I'll use Grok and I'll brainstorm ideas that we can chat about. But look for updates on the YouTube channel when it comes to upcoming shows, and we'll plan on it. So I am home now, not going anywhere for a little while. So yeah, we'll walk through some of that. So take care of yourselves out there, everybody. Really appreciate you. I'll see you all in the next one. Oh, you know what? I better load my outro. There it is. All right. Now I will see you all in the next one. Cheers.